No one really plans to drift apart. It happens slowly and quietly, one distraction at a time. We'll talk more about it right after this.
Let's talk about love and marriage the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The Low Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. Fruit Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. We're so glad to have you here. Reese, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
That's good.
So today we're talking a little bit about drifting apart, losing sight of, where you really should be. And it happens a lot in our relationships and in life with busy seasons. You don't realize it. Just wake up one day and things are not quite where they used to be. And you have to kind of find a way to get back together. And I can say in our relationship, we've been through this as well, through the different seasons and different changes in our relationship. We weren't always focused on one another. As you focus upon career, as you focus upon the children, you focus upon outside groups, masonry and church and things like that. It takes away from your relationship, your spouse. It takes away from your marriage. And sometimes it does happen slowly, or it can happen sometimes quickly. Like, hey, the kid's here, and now everything is shifted and focusing on that individual. But we have to find ways to restore and get back to one another. But before you can do that, you have to understand that you have drifted apart. And that's tough because, again, of life and the other goals that you have going on. You reach the goal of getting married, but now to reach those other goals of career and advancement, it takes away from advancing your marriage and becoming and staying close with your spouse. So that's what I think. What have we done to get through that situation? It's been a long journey. I think, I applaud my husband, Maurice. I applaud you for seeing a lot of it, of the distance, and doing the self-work of realizing what needs to happen. I think you came and was like, hey, I miss my wife. I want to date my wife again. And we, created some date nights. We're not that power couple that's like, hey, every Thursday we go on a date, or once a month we go out. We haven't solidified things in that way. I think we're getting better with it, with having moments together, especially as our family has grown and matured, and one of our children have moved away out of the house. It's created more opportunities for us to be together as a couple. But for so many years, we focused on being a parent, being a worker. Maurice moving, transitioning from being an employee, a worker, to being an entrepreneur. And then that became the focus. And we weren't so much focused on checking in on where we were in our relationship and was the relationship growing. So we lost direction. We lost our focus. That's what I think. Maurice, what do you think?
I think that unfortunately, not having, and I think y'all might have heard me say it on the show, in previous episodes, of not having or understanding what it means to have a healthy relationship. I think in some cases, certain situations, our experiences and what we might have seen, again, as you get older, you realize like, oh snap, like that was a really toxic environment. But the reality is that people are only trying to do the best with what they have. In most cases, not all, but most. And some, and then those other cases where people just could care less about you and just only worried about them, and so because of those relationships that had direct connection to us, we didn't understand or know what it really meant for us to grow within this thing called marriage. And I think that hurt us because, it's that situation of, and I'll just use this as an example. I'm not saying this is the case, but I just use this as an example. So Kafa says she used to enjoy watching her mom get dressed up, go to work, or whatever it is. So Kafa wanted to be a business person, right? You like that look, that vibe, or whatever it is. But here's the thing about that. What no one tells you is that what does that really mean to be in a position or a job where you dress up, where you really have to dress all the way up to go to a job. Now, granted, it's the time.
I was going to say, yeah, like everybody kind of got dressed. My
Right.
teachers wore skirts and suits, male and female.
Right.
Principals, like everybody around us, except for maybe the gym teacher. But I even remember my music teacher wore a suit.
Right,
Right.
right.
So it wasn't, that was the norm in the 80s. The people on TV, the same.
Right.
No matter what they did, if they were, the local junk people, they wore slacks.
Slacks, yeah.
You rarely saw them with jeans on. So it was just a difference in the time for me. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so I think what happens is because the image of, hey, my parent gets up and goes to work, and this is how they need to dress every day, where I want to emulate that. But we don't understand what it means to be in that place and what's the cost of being in that place. And so if I am in a place or a position of like, hey, I want to move up, then what political games do that cause me to do, right? If I am on a project and I have to work early or work late, or, I have to be so honed in and focused in on this particular job or whatever it is, I don't have time to talk to anybody else, or whatever. So unfortunately what happens is that, as you're stating, Kyle, like we get so zoned in, maybe in our 9 to 5, we get so zoned in into, all right, now the kids are here and what do they need? What's going on? I mean, for myself, I'm coaching football, I'm coaching basketball, I'm going to home and school. Well, Kafa and I, both are not going to home and school meetings. She's a little more involved with the home and school stuff.
But like you said, masonry, and you were trying to move up in those positions, and that
for those of you that don't know what masonry is, it's just a fraternal organization. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you're moving up and having to do and play political things with that, and have committee meetings and all the things that came along with those positions that you were in. You weren't just a member. Likewise with church. Activities in the beginning of our marriage, we were very entrenched in the church and leaders in some regard with all of that. So we weren't just there on Sundays. We weren't just making,
And we weren't just there in the community either. We were out there handing out flags. We was part of the boosters. I was asked to be on city council, so for my borough, that the reality is that we were involved in a whole lot of stuff. We were out the house a whole heck of a lot. And And so when I started to recognize some of that, and then I started to slow down or whatever it was, well, Kafa never did. Kafa didn't slow down. Kafa continued to stay, circulating. And so that started to, have us start to drift in certain places.
And you were, I think you were active in other areas. I don't know that your fraternal, while I was still active in community things, I think you were still active in some fraternal things. No,
I wasn't.
Okay.
So did I peek my head in some of the fraternal stuff every now and then?
Mm-hmm.
But like, for an example, did I go to a meeting? Maybe, right? Did I go to a community event? Maybe. But in all reality, I had not been active once I had stepped down as being president, quote unquote. I didn't go to a meeting again, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then once I decided to go back some 12 years later to get back into being in that organization, I'm like, I see why I didn't stay. And so the reality is it wasn't quite 12, maybe it was 11. And so when I got back to, wanting to be active, I realized like, this ain't for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I had outgrown it, and not necessarily outgrown it, but I had moved on, and understanding that I was starting to really enjoy what I really had, and that I really want that distraction to continue to or bring back that divide again. And so when you're saying, hey, me acknowledging what was that caused the drift, well, if my fraternal organization caused the drift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I would say is that, did I try to go back coaching again? Well, yeah, I did. Well, I would coach, took a break, tried to go back, realized like, oh, snap, my health is not right. I got gout. I can't stand up, as long as I thought I could, right? And so those are the type of things that you start to realize like, well, you know what? Maybe my focus is off. Maybe my focus is wrong, and I need to do something else about it. And I need to understand that, or why, or how God gets the glory out of any of all this,
Mm-hmm.
and or my purpose as well, and so, and my best utilizing what has been a God-given gift one way or another, but then you start to realize and you understand like, hey, you know what? Well, you know what? I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to go to church. And you realize, oh, wow, people are people, and they're going to utilize your gifts and graces for themselves as well, possibly. Not 100%, but it's possible. So now you're stuck. What do you do? Again, and those type, even with church, causes drift as well. Because now you have, I know people that's out the house literally 6.5 days out the week for church. In the name of church.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But again, how does that help or assist their marriage? Oh, wow. Some of these individuals have been married 3 different times. You get what I mean?
I think some of it is just not having the vision and understanding the purpose of those things. And I can say, hey, we joined some things with the vision of uplifting the family, or having a better understanding of something. There were clear, I think there were clear visions on why we joined organizations or became active, but not understanding, hey, well, how much time is this going to absorb? What is it going to take from us? I think we kind of understood what it may add to us, and what we could possibly share from our gifts and our talents, but didn't understand the whole picture. again, as we talked about in another episode in reference to, hey, having the goal of having a big house or the goal of losing 75 pounds, like not understanding what happens after you lose that 75 pounds, not understanding what happens after you now have that big house, and not just the house, but even if it's just land, if you just have, land, what do you do after that fact? So after we become coaches, after we're on boards and things like that, like what does that mean? What comes with that? What's expected of us in that role?
I think what happens sometimes individuals, I guess the best way to put it is when they recruit you, I guess, right? It's like anything else, you're selling the good parts, but you're not always selling the bad parts, right?
Right.
Or the perceived bad parts. Because, again, what could be bad for you may not have to be bad for somebody else.
Right.
And so if I really, again, some situations where I like the idea of being married, but what really takes to be married and have a successful relationship in marriage, what does that take? That takes time, energy, commitment, conversations. It takes maybe being mad, sad, happy, crying, boo-hooing, pooping, peeing, whatever it might be, right?
It's all of it.
You're
Living together.
But I think what happens is that because no one tells you that, you don't know,
what to expect.
What to expect. And so now I am, if in order for me to get to a certain level, a certain place or a space, and I got to play that political game, right? Well, how am I neglecting my responsibilities at home? So for an example, if I'm so caught up in being productive and moving forward that I forget a basic situation of just getting out the bed and making the bed back up, right? So here's the thing. You don't realize that, your spouse could be thoroughly ticked off, or at least that's the way it's explained to you, that it's like, yo, like, can you be a little neater, boy? Mindset. And that's how it was. It wasn't said to me that way, but that's the way I had taken it.
Again, I'm sorry. I apologize.
You don't have to apologize and be sorry about anything. But because and I'm saying that, and I'm saying it that way because of, again, where was I at in that space? Again, when we talk about having a vision, right? Are you able to be? And you keep missing the mark. You're not in a good place or space. So everything that you hear is a deterrent. It's a situation where you're just not in a good place. You're feeling some type of way. And it doesn't matter what anybody says. Somebody could have said, that's a very beautiful red apple today. You're like, no, it's not red. It got a little green at the bottom. But not understanding, like, hey, that could be a very beautiful red apple. So are we talking about how ripe the apple really is? What season is it in? The tree that birthed it or whatever it is, again, no pun on it, no fruit. But the but the reality is that, are we able to see the beauty in a situation because our vision is blurry? Are we able to see and hear what's going on because our hearing is blurry or whatever it is? So I think what happens is that those type of things, can deter and take us off track of what our purpose and our mission really is, because we get so caught up in all the other stuff. And now, guess what? We have years, possibly, of not being on the same page, idea-wise, right?
Right.
Fundamentally. or whatever the situation might be. And so now, does that take away our joy? Does that take away our happiness? And or we get to a place where we're totally comfortable in being in our separate places that now we're not excelling or moving in anything because now we're comfortable. So there's a lot of things that I think assist in having people drift in their marriage, having and ultimately having them drift from the Lord, pretty much, because you're no longer focused on that. You're so focused on what that particular goal is that, hey, you know what? Maybe there was that quiet voice that said, I need you to bear to the right a little bit. Not turn right, but just bear right a little bit. And sometimes we don't do that.
Yeah. That's a good comment of what you shared. Again, on just being focused and having that vision. And then when you don't have the focus, then yes, you can drift. I think I was just saying that to our son the other day, just kind of talking about driving and skills that you need to have, while you're on the road. And I said, when you're not looking at the road and you look at the sidewalk or you look at something else, you take the focus off the goal, that the car will drift that way, And I said, likewise, when you're on a bike or if you're on, anything that's moving, if you take your eyes off of it, you will begin to drift away from it, So I'm just using that as a connection to what you're saying. So one of the things we would love for everyone that's listening to do is to let us know, what stopped you from paying attention, to something. And just put it in the comments. What did you stop paying attention to in your relationship? What did you stop paying attention to in your marriage, and at work, even within yourself? Like sometimes that happens with people. I stopped paying attention to the way I dress or whatever. And so we would just like to know, keep us in the know. So thank you so much for listening. Reese, you have anything else you want to say?
I do. I have one thing I would like to say. In this place of paying attention, I just want you to cover. I want you to understand that, you apologized, right? And, I did not say I accept it or not. I said to you, you don't have to, right? Because I don't need you to feel like you. I appreciate it. I accept your apology. I appreciate it. But I also want to, those of you that are listening, is that here's what making of the bed does. If you really think about it, it's something as simple as making of the bed. You have completed one goal, right? You have completed a task. And sometimes those type of things of making up the bed in the very beginning of the day and then going back into the room later on in the day and going to a made-up bed, what does that bring to you? Because you've accomplished a goal and you end off seeing how the goal looked later on in the day. You get that, it's that feeling of, you go into a hotel and you're impressed, like, look at how the bed is made up and all that type of stuff, So what does that look like and feel like for you? And I know for myself, I don't always go, full hotel folded, whatever. I don't do that. A lot of times I just pull the sheet and the blanket up. But in all reality, though, how does the bed look? Even when you do that versus the bed looks like you just got out the bed,
like you're about to get back in.
Right. So some of that is just discipline, commitment, or whatever it is. So those are things that I had to look at for myself. So again, when I say, that, or what I said that was, make up the bed boy, yes, I was a boy. That's like I said, that's what I heard because of I was not handling my business.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also in handling your business, you start to drift away of whatever God has for you. So I accept your apology. It wasn't needed in that moment because there were some things that I had to learn and I had to deal with. So that's just what I would like to say, in that moment. I'm sorry, is there anything you would like to say?
I mean, I have a whole lot, but I'll talk to you later about it all.
Okay. But, and so I would like for each and every one of you that, in this, with this show, leave a review. If we really made or said something for you to sit back and reflect on a moment in your life, or where you might have taken a comment negatively, or where you might have drifted because of, perceived responsibilities. But I thank y'all very much for listening today.
Thanks so much.
We'll talk to y'all later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow.